So I found a couple of interesting stories that I wanted to share, and I just kind of want to hang out live just because the family has gone on vacation, so it's just me and YouTube. So I kind of wish I had gone now. You ever like, nah, I'm not going, I'm not going, I'm not going. Then you're like, dang, I should have went. I'm at that dang, I should have went point. But yeah, anyway, so this story is out of California, and this is a good news story in a way. It's never good news when a child is hurt or when anyone is hurt. Really, it's never good news when there's a victim, especially a victim of a homicide. But at least this is a story where justice is served in the end. So this is a 5-year-old girl in California that was abducted while walking to school in 1982, and a man in Nevada has just been charged with her murder. So I'm going to play that.
The new technology used to track down the alleged Golden State Killer could help identify another infamous serial murderer in California. A judge yesterday ordered Joseph D'Angelo to provide his fingerprints and additional DNA samples to police. He must also let them photograph his entire body. Carter Evans is in Los Angeles with how the DNA techniques used to identify D'Angelo could help solve other cold cases. Carter, good morning.
Good morning. Before the Golden State Killer's crime spree, Californians were terrorized by another killer, the Zodiac Killer. Now investigators are hoping to use the same methods to solve that crime by putting the killer's DNA into a genealogical database.
Okay, I'm not going to play that because it's not about the story. So, a 70-year-old Nevada man has been charged with the 1982 killing of a 5-year-old girl who disappeared while walking to her kindergarten class in California after detectives solved the case using DNA evidence. Robert John Leno of Reno, Nevada, was charged last week in the killing of Ann Pham and was due in court Monday in Washoe County for a hearing about his extradition to Monterey County in California. Pham disappeared while walking to her kindergarten class at Highland Elementary School in Seaside, California on January 21st, 1982. Her body was found 2 days later in the former Fort Ord, an army post in Monterey Bay. The child had been kidnapped, sexually assaulted, and strangled, California authorities said. According to court records, Leno has waived extradition to Monterey County in California. As of Monday, he was still in the Washoe County Jail. It's a very strong case. DNA has a large part, genealogy has a large part, and circumstantial evidence in this case is extremely powerful, Seaside Police Chief Nick Borges told Kion 46. The suspect lived about a block and a half away from Ann Pham. Leno was a registered sex offender in Nevada, who is a registered sex offender in Nevada, was 29 years old at the time of the girl's killing and lived near her home in Seaside, said Monterey County District Attorney Janine Paccioni. The guy is a complete monster, Borges told People magazine. The case was reopened in 2020 when investigators with the Monterey County District Attorney's Office cold case task force worked with the Seaside Police Department to submit evidence from the case for DNA testing after receiving a grant to reopen cold cases. A new type of DNA testing not previously available to earlier investigators identified Leno as the suspect in Pham's murder, the district attorney's office said in a press release. Leno was charged with one count of first-degree murder with special circumstance allegations that he murdered Pham while committing kidnapping and a lewd act on a child under the age of 14. It was not immediately known if Leno has an attorney who can speak on his behalf. On July 6th, California investigators obtained a warrant for Leno's arrest. Leno was already in the Washoe County Jail where he was booked on June 8th for a parole violation. Give me just 1 second and we're going to come right back and discuss this because there's so much in this case. Just give me 1 second. I need to grab something to drink. So, 5-year-old girl walking to school to her kindergarten class, kidnapped, raped, and murdered. And I'm sure there are some who will say, why was a 5-year-old walking to school by herself? But it was a different time in the 80s. In the 80s, us kids used to walk everywhere by ourselves. I wasn't in, what grade was I in 1982? I was a kindergarten or first grade, and we would go all over the neighborhood alone. My school was literally walking distance, although my mom used to walk us to school every morning and walk us home every afternoon. It was not any further than we would go on our own after school, like just roaming the neighborhood. So in the 80s, it was a different world. It's not like today. I wouldn't dare let my kids, like, when my kids were growing up, even in the 90s, I would let them go to the park by themselves. The park was about 2 blocks from our house, a block and a half. I would let them go to the park by themselves. I would let them walk to the neighborhood store by themselves. And that even involved crossing a fairly busy 2-lane street, but it was different then, and it was different in our neighborhood. But if I were raising the same kids in the same area now, I wouldn't do any of that just because of the way that things have changed and the way people are nowadays and these stories that you hear. Like in the 80s, this was a rarity. This wasn't something that happened as commonly as it happens now. And I'm sure there are some who will argue that, yeah, it did. It's just that we hear about it more often now because of, the age of information and internet and all this kind of stuff. But I honestly don't believe that the things that are happening now to children, all the kidnappings, murders, and sexual assaults of children, happened as frequently as it does nowadays. Now, I can't say the same for like family situations, um, molestations and things in the family situation. I don't think that's changed much. I don't think it's more happening more now. I think we just hear about it more. But as far as like strangers just randomly abducting a child and doing something like this, I don't think it happened quite as much back then. Because even without the internet, you would hear about it. If things were happening like this on a regular basis, you would have heard about it anyway, regardless of not having internet and all that stuff. So, because this is the type of thing that would have made the news regardless. And back then, it's such a shocking crime that back then it would have been headline. So, I do think that happens more often nowadays. The genetics genealogy testing that they're doing nowadays to catch criminals in cold cases and to solve decades old homicides and murders and rapes. I think that is an excellent thing. They're actually doing that in the John Benet Ramsey case right now. And I am so anxious to see the results of that because that case left so many questions and so many possibilities open. And then you have people who were really polarized in that. Some people were just dead set that it was the parents, one or both of the parents. Some people were dead set on that it was the brother. And then some people were just straight up, no, it was none of them, it was a stranger. So I cannot wait to see what the genetic genealogy DNA comes back on that so that at least some things can be taken off the board, even if the crime isn't solved. If the DNA comes back to a stranger, then at least it takes the family off the board in that case. So I think that's a wonderful tool that they've been using, and I am so excited to see it used in more cases now. The fact that this guy was only 29 years old at the time that it happened, and now he's 70 years old, that's 41 years that he was out there, and God only knows how many victims that he had. I feel like that if he kidnapped, raped, and murdered this 5-year-old child from who lived a block and a half away from him, that this wasn't the first time that he's assaulted a child, and possibly not the first time that he's killed a child or anyone else. And then over the years, having gotten away with that, I feel like he would have been emboldened to do the same thing again. And so I believe that we're going to see where this guy ends up having more victims, because I just don't feel like this is a one off. Like, people, you don't just do this one time and like, oh, okay, never going to do that again. I mean, it doesn't happen that way. When someone has a victim, especially a case on this magnitude, a crime of this magnitude, there has to be at least one other person that he's assaulted, and more than that. I mean, even if he didn't kill again, I don't see this being the only child that he sexually assaulted in his lifetime. So that's 41. That's at least 41 years between the first known victim and now. And God only knows how many victims he had before that, because I also seriously doubt that he jumped up at 29 years old and decided he wanted to be a child raping murderer all of a sudden that day. This was something that was built up to over the course of time. He didn't just jump up and do that all of a sudden out of the blue. So the best news that a person can hope for in a case like this is exactly what we have seen, and that is that he is going to face justice for what he did. Okay. What do we have next? Lafayette parents arrested after 5-year-old brought to hospital extremely malnourished. And here again, we have these parents who just aren't doing the right thing about their children. And it's like, if you're going to have children, take care of them. If you don't want them or you can't take care of them, give them away. There are so many people out there, including me, who want a child so bad and simply cannot have one, physically unable, although I was blessed to be able to have 4 children of my own. I just couldn't have another one when I wanted to. But there are so many people out there who want children, who want a child that they can love and raise and care for and help to thrive and be successful and happy and prosperous, that there is really no excuse for anyone to harm or mistreat a child. So the story says 2 Lafayette parents have been arrested after a child was brought to a local hospital suffering from malnutrition. Wilson Soto, 31, and Leila Rivera, 30, were arrested Friday and each booked into the Lafayette Parish Correctional Center on account of second-degree cruelty to a juvenile. And an investigation was launched into the parents after the 5-year-old was brought to a local hospital underweight and extremely malnourished. The Louisiana Department of Children and Family Services filed a complaint after the child was brought to the hospital. Detectives determined the child's parents neglected to provide the child with adequate food and medical attention, which resulted in her condition. According to the state law, second-degree cruelty to a child is, quote, intentional or criminally negligent mistreatment or neglect by anyone over the age of 17 to any child under the age of 17, which causes serious bodily injury or neurological impairment to that child, end quote. If convicted, the crime carries a maximum prison sentence of 40 years. And in this case, for a child to be so severely malnourished and maltreated, I think 40 years would be a wonderful thing to see them get. And you know what? The thought crosses my mind every time I see a case where kids are not being fed, kids are not being treated well. I bet you their parents were eating good. I bet you that. I bet they weren't underweight or malnourished. I bet they were going to see doctors when they needed to, keeping their health up, keeping themselves up, their hygienes or whatever. Maybe not their hygienes. I mean, because they sound like horrible people. They might have been drug addicts and not even care about their hygienes. Who knows? But I bet you they weren't hungry. I bet you every time they felt like eating, there was some. They went and got something out of the fridge or off the stove or from the convenience store or fast food restaurant. But they made this baby suffer like that, probably eating in front of her. So people like that, I have no sympathy for. I hope they get those 40 years, and I hope they suffer during the time that they are incarcerated, so that they can think about what they put this poor child through. This is not a child victim, but this is just cruel. And this one just stood out to me because this is just an evil person. It says a Florida man locks his daughter's three dogs in a hot car for days, leaving them to die. I'm not even going to read this story, but he left these dogs in a car for days. So he intended for these dogs to die. There's like no excuse for that. I mean, who puts dogs in their car and leaves them there for days to poop and pee and everything else? So for him to do that just shows that he had evil intentions to begin with. He didn't have any good intentions toward those animals. He probably didn't even like them. Probably wanted his daughter to get him out of the house or out of his yard or whatever. It's short. I'll read it. A Florida man is accused of killing his daughter's three dogs by locking them in a hot car for several days. Deputies in Escambia County, in Escambia County in Cantonment. Oh, wait. Deputies in Escambia County say Felton Charles Henderson's daughter asked him to take care of her three dogs for a few days while she was out of town. Escambia County Sheriff Chip Simmons says the woman left food, water, and everything the dogs would need while she was gone. However, when she returned and asked where her dogs were, the sheriff says her father led her to a blue Toyota Camry, opened the door, and pulled out three dead dogs. It is apparent that all he did was lock the dogs in heat, yesterday's heat, and the day before yesterday's heat, Simmons said. He put these dogs in his blue Toyota Camry, knowing full well that they would not survive. All three dogs perished from the heat. You can imagine the suffering they probably went through. He was arrested for animal cruelty. This is no way to treat an animal. They rely on you to give them care and concern, and you did none of that. So you would go to jail. You will go to jail for animal cruelty. Henderson has been arrested on a charge of animal cruelty. So that's crazy. That's real. That's wow. Yeah, that was intentional and malicious. You don't just lock dogs in cars. And like, if you didn't want to take care of the dogs, why would you even do that? Why not just say no, I can't, or whatever, or no, I don't want to? Killed that girl's dogs. Here is a very sad story that I want to share. And I want to share this one definitely for awareness, because I know I have a 2-year-old granddaughter, and she gets into everything. She tries everything. She she's just busy, and you have to watch and make sure that she doesn't hurt herself or get a hold of dangerous things, or you know what I'm saying? You have to really pay attention because she's constantly on the move. And this is a case where somebody should have been paying attention. It says the little boy dies after trying to climb inside a balloon. He is so precious. Oh my God, look at those eyes. A 5-year-old boy died after his sweet-natured game went horribly wrong as he tried to climb inside a dinosaur-shaped helium balloon. Carlton Noah Donahue mom found him collapsed on the floor with the balloon pulled down over his head and neck. She believes he was trying to wear the balloon, which was as large as he was, as a costume so he could dress up as a dinosaur and surprise his family to make them laugh. Mom, Lisa Donahue, 43, made the horrifying discovery at the family's home in Dunstan in the town of Gateshead in the northeast of England on June 23rd, local news website Chronicle Live reported. The little boy had been obsessed with dinosaurs and had been bought the large green balloon as a treat when she and husband Carl Donahue, 35, took their son to a fun fair a week earlier. Lisa Donahue had been outside in the backyard enjoying the warm weather with her other children. sons Joe, 20, and Will, 15, as well as her daughter Caitlin, who was visiting with her 8-month-old twin girls. Donaghy's youngest son had been playing with them, but said he was going inside to use the toilet. His mother went to check on him when he didn't return shortly afterward, and she told Chronicle Live, "When I came in, he was on the floor with with the balloon over his head and his neck. It was a dinosaur balloon, which was the same size as him. I think he's put himself in the balloon to be a dinosaur to go outside and surprise his nieces. I pulled the balloon off him and I screamed. I think I carried him to the patio door. As a mother, I knew he was gone. He was unresponsive, his eyes wide open, and he was pale. I just collapsed outside on the grass. Her oldest child, Caitlin, rushed inside and began CPR on her little brother as the family called for an ambulance. The neighbor with neighbor Amy Morrison taking over when she was unable to continue. Donaghy said, I must have screamed and screamed and screamed. I couldn't bear to come back in. My little boy was getting worked on. I was numb with fear and terror. The little boy was airlifted to the Royal Victoria Infirmary in Newcastle and spent 6 days in intensive care, but he did not regain consciousness and began suffering from severe seizures. His family had to make the heartbreaking decision to turn off his life support machines on June 29th when doctors said there was no longer any hope he could be saved. Lisa Donaghy said he was trying to fight on, but I knew he was fighting with a little ounce of energy. It was taking it all out of him. I told him, stop being brave, go to sleep, don't worry about Mammy. I promised my little boy that it wouldn't break me. They took the sedation off him and he deteriorated rapidly. I had the beautiful opportunity to lie in bed with him, to hum and sing in his ear and cuddle him on my chest until his little heart stopped. My little boy just went to sleep and he looked so beautiful. He was my little best friend and my little sidekick. We did everything together from morning until night. A coroner is due to determine the son's exact cause of death after an autopsy, but the family believes the 5-year-old died as a result of inhaling helium. A hazardous substance fact sheet produced by the New Jersey Department of Health in 2016 warned of the dangers of the gas, stating helium is a colorless, odorless gas. It is used in weather balloons, in welding gases, and as a carrier gas in some industrial operations. Exposure to high levels of helium can cause headaches, dizziness, and lightheadedness. Very high levels can cause passing out and even death due to suffocation from lack of oxygen. Donaghy said she wanted to warn other parents of the risks. It's very dangerous. I want parents, grandparents, childminders, adults, students, anyone that has come into contact with helium to be cautious about the ways they use it and dispose of it. A precious 5-year-old has been taken too soon, and I would never, ever put this pain on anyone. A fundraising event has been set up by the family friend to raise money for the little boy's funeral and to pay for a memorial bench in his honor. The GoFundMe site's total goal of £3,000 or $3,587 was surpassed. The current amount of the donation standing at more than £7,700 or $9,208. Newsweek has reached out to the family for further comment. The incident comes after an 8-year-old boy was found dead in his bedroom after inhaling helium from a large balloon shaped like the number 8 that he'd been given for his birthday the week before. Luke Ramon Harper was found with the balloon over his face in his home in Dublin, Ireland on April 2021. And there have been other tragedies too. A 14-year-old Oregon girl, Ashley Long, died back in 2012 after inhaling helium from a tank at a party. Her father said she'd been pressured into it by other partygoers who were trying to make their voices sound higher pitched. In May 2019, it was reported that the world was experiencing a major helium shortage, causing difficulties for science and businesses. Helium is used in various industries, including space exploration, healthcare, and manufacturing. The year before, astronomers had discovered helium in the atmosphere of a planet outside our solar system. according to a new study published by the journal Nature. While in March this year, researchers said Earth's core appears to be leaking primordial helium from the Big Bang, with around 4.4 pounds escaping in the planet's interior every year. So this was a very sad story, just something to be cautious about when we give our children balloons and different types of things to play with. We really need to pay close attention because just that quickly, he was going to the bathroom and supposed to be coming right back out. And in that short amount of time, he got into this balloon, passed out, and eventually died. So we just need to be really careful, keep an eye on the kids, make sure especially that you're paying attention to them with these balloons and things like that. Really anything that could cause them danger. I have a couple of more I want to go into. We're going to talk about Uvalde today. But first, I want to talk about Relisha Rudd because the Relisha Rudd is one of those cases that I hold close to my heart because this baby, this baby disappeared, and she deserves to be found and brought home and given a decent burial. Now, the thing with Relisha Rudd is I am 98% sure that she is no longer with us because of the circumstances surrounding her disappearance. And I'm going to get into that. Hold on one second. Says the images show how Relisha Rudd may look 8 years after her disappearance. Relisha Rudd was 8 years old when she was last seen in 2014 with a man who worked as a custodian at the DC General Homeless Shelter where her family lived. She would be so beautiful. Look at her. And I think this is a very good age progression because I can still see the young Relisha Rudd in this photo. And this seems to be a good depiction of how she would have aged. More than 8 years after Relisha Rudd was last seen in DC, a new image shows how she may look at 16. The National Center for Missing and Exploited Children released an updated age progression image on Monday of Rudd, who was 8 when she was last seen in Northeast DC in 2014. The search Rudd continues. DC police said on Relisha Rudd Awareness Day, "We have never given up our search for her. We're asking everyone to take a close look at this photo and share it. It just takes one person to bring home a missing child. We know that age progression photos can work. We have seen cases where missing children are found because someone recognizes an image just like this. An event to honor Rudd was and raise awareness of missing children was scheduled for 5 p.m. Monday at 4443 Benning Road Northeast. It will be streamed online. Rudd was missing for more than 2 weeks before police were notified. The day of her last confirmed sighting, on March 1st, 2014, she was caught on surveillance footage at a motel in the Northeast with Khalil Tatum. He worked as a custodian at what was at the time the district's homeless shelter for families. He was able to take Relisha to his home and then to the motel. And the way the story works out is that Relisha Rudd and her mother were living in a homeless shelter. There was a man, the Khalil Tatum, who worked as a janitor there at the homeless shelter. There's something about him pretending to be like a counselor or some type of doctor, somebody with like letters behind their name or whatever, but I can't really remember the details of that. But he got close to Relisha Rudd, and her mother eventually allowed him to like take Relisha places, buy her things, keep her overnights, saying that she was spending the night with his daughter or his granddaughter, who was apparently around her age, but apparently her mother had never actually even met or seen this supposed daughter or granddaughter or even his wife. Well, the last time Relisha Rudd was seen was on video surveillance at a hotel with Tatum O'Neal. Tatum O'Neal killed his wife, I believe, in that hotel room, and then he was found dead a few days later by suicide. Relisha has never been seen since she was seen on the video surveillance at that hotel. And so that is why I say I do not believe that she is still with us, because he killed his wife, he killed himself. I'm sure he killed her since no one else has seen her anywhere. No sign of her, not neither hide nor hair of her has ever been seen or heard of since then. But let's keep her face out there just in case, because it's not necessarily true that she's not with us anymore. There's always the slim chance that she is still out there somewhere, that he did something with her other than end her life. And I would really love for that to be the case. That would be absolutely amazing. Now, I want to talk about Uvalde because we've had some things happen in Uvalde. And before that, one more thing, because we talked about the hot car with uh, the dogs, the guy leaving the dogs in the hot car for 3 days. We spoke about hot car deaths a few days ago when I talked about Sidney Deal getting a misdemeanor plea bargain for the hot car death of his daughter, Sayadil. Here we have a Georgia 1-year-old girl that died after being left in a hot car for 4 hours. And I have seen so many hot car death stories in the last couple of days that I can't even keep track of them. Hold on, let me get this pasted. Oh,
The first day of summer is here, and so are some dangerously hot temperatures. The heat turned tragic on Monday when Texas authorities say a 5-year-old boy died after being left in a vehicle in the Houston area as temperatures topped 100 degrees. For more on the dangerous heat and what you can do to help protect yourself, let's bring in meteorologist Mike Bettis from our partners at the Weather Channel. Hey there, Mike.
Nora, good evening. And our hope during the heat of summer is that we can help prevent tragedies like what unfolded in Texas. And here at the Weather Channel, we developed a scorching car scale. What it does is it gives you an idea of the danger of enclosed vehicles. Atlanta, for instance, tomorrow, forecast high of 100 degrees. After just 10 minutes, the inside temperature of that vehicle is 119. The temperature after just 30 minutes, 134 degrees, unsurvivable for a small child strapped inside a car seat or for pets. So always important to look before you lock, make sure that you're exiting the vehicle and everyone else is exiting the vehicle with you before you lock it up. The heat is not giving up. Temperatures again, triple digits, quite common, especially across the southeast. Atlanta 100, Montgomery 103, Meridian 101, and a pattern, Nor, we believe stays with us at least through July 4th and beyond.
Mike, thank you.
Images that you've never seen before of the police response to the school shooting in Uvalde, Texas.
so I'm actually going to let this play here in a second because we're about to go ahead and talk about Uvalde. Let me get all this stuff from popping up on my screen. Y'all can't see it, but I can, and it's annoying. Now, we all know that it gets super hot, especially in the South in the summer. Florida, Georgia, Alabama, Louisiana, Texas, Arizona, the Carolinas, we know it gets super hot. California, Nevada, and lately it's been getting super hot in other places too, even in the north. I've seen some hundreds temperatures, high 90s and low hundreds. So there's really no excuse for a child being left in a car to die in the heat. I am a parent. I not only have had a hand in raising my own children, but other children too. I've been responsible for small cousins, for nieces, nephews, whatever, friends' kids. There is no way in the world you leave a baby in the car, a kid in the car, especially not a big kid. I mean, maybe you could forget a baby sleeping quietly in the back in a car seat, but how do you forget a whole big kid, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 years old? That's absolutely ridiculous. This particular topic gets under my skin because you see it not only with like parents and caregivers, but you see it with daycare centers. Daycare centers where there's supposed to be protocols and measures in place to account for children. You're supposed to be counting kids coming in, counting kids going out. How many ate lunch? How many are here today? How many are present? Count them on their mats and see how many are taking a nap. Count them in their strollers or whatever. And you mean to tell me that you can leave a child to die in a hot van with all these protocols that are supposed to be in place? Then a parent, I don't see how a parent could leave a child in a hot car to die because that's your natural reaction. Is your natural instinct as a parent is to protect your kid. How do you walk in the house and not realize your kid isn't with you when they were just with you in the car? How do you have a routine of dropping your kid off at daycare every morning and then going to work and totally forget to go to the daycare and forget that your kid is in the car? Like, come on, man. And I said that because one of the ones that stick out to me is the guy who left the baby in the car, says that he forgot to go to the daycare center, went to work, actually went to his car during his lunch break, was seen on camera going to his car during his lunch break, and still somehow didn't realize that the baby was in the car until after work. Absolutely impossible, man. You can't forget a whole child. So please, please, please make sure you're looking, make sure you're checking. If you have to get one of those alarm things that reminds you to check your seats and check for the kids before you get out of the car, by all means get it. Sacrifice and get it. I don't know how much they cost. I don't need something like that, but absolutely get it. Whatever it takes to save these kids' lives. And if you ever find yourself in a situation like Sydney Deal was in, where your only option to get your child out of the car is to break the window, break the freaking window. Like it's not a super expensive repair. You know, you could pick up cans and you could scrap cans. I know everybody just about drinks sodas. You could scrap cans and pay for a window. Just whatever it takes to save these kids from dying in these hot cars, because it's an epidemic that is senseless. It just doesn't make sense. It's like injecting yourself with something that you know is going to give you terminal cancer. You just some things you just don't do. It just doesn't make sense. It doesn't add up. You know. I mean, it's like licking somebody's face when you know they have coronavirus. Give me your coronavirus. I want it. Like, don't do it. Don't do stupid things. Don't leave your kids in hot cars. So we're going to talk about Uvalde because they have released footage of the officers in the hallway, and I watched it last night, early this morning, and I was absolutely flabbergasted. These cops were. I hope they play it in here. I'm gonna let her talk about it. If not, then I do have the video I'm gonna play.
We have to tell you it's devastating. It shows a hallway surveillance video first obtained by the Austin American Statesman and the Austin TV station, that would be KVUE. It shows how officers stood by. They stood by and they failed to engage the gunman as the teachers and the children were critically injured just right down the hall, and despite multiple calls for help. Now, this video has been edited, so you will not hear the children screaming. We don't think that's good for anybody to hear. Lilia Luciano is in Uvalde with more on this story. I don't know, Lilia, I just think how much more do these parents have to take? This is just heartbreaking. Good morning to you.
Good morning, Gail. Well, these families were caught off guard by the release of this video. They were supposed to watch it Sunday, but local media in private released it sooner. I'll tell you, these images are very difficult to watch and to hear, but some family members told me it was important for them to watch it in full so they knew exactly what police did and also what they didn't do.
Get in your room! Get in your room!
911 audio from May 24th reveals a teacher's desperation inside Robb Elementary School as the gunman fired at the building from the parking lot. Moments later, at 11:33 a.m., surveillance footage shows him walking in and turning down a hallway. One student peeking around a corner spots the gunman and runs away just as shots ring out into classrooms 111 and 112. More than 2 minutes later, at least 3 police officers race towards the classroom, retreating as the shooter fires at them. By that point, at least 11 police officers were inside the school, equipped with body armor, at least 2 rifles, and 4 pistols. Police continue waiting in the hall for almost 20 minutes, and as dozens of officers from 7 different agencies arrive, they too wait and wait. More than 20 minutes after that, at 12:21 p.m., the gunman fired 4 more shots, prompting several heavily armed officers with ballistic shields to move down the hallway, but they still didn't try to enter the classroom. Nearly an hour into the massacre, the gunman hadn't been stopped, and one officer is seen sanitizing his hands before returning to lean behind a wall. Finally, at 12:50, law enforcement breaches the classroom, killing the gunman, an hour and 17 minutes after he entered the school. The footage came out as several families of the children killed were in Washington, D.C., advocating for gun reform. Its sudden release days before a scheduled private hearing left some feeling shocked, betrayed, devastated, all over again.
You broke us today for a minute, but we're not going back home. We're going to stay and we're going to fight.
In Uvalde, Mayor Don McLaughlin berated the media for sharing the leaked video.
The way that video was released today is one of the most chicken things I've ever seen.
But some community members said the criticism was misguided. Adam Martinez's son escaped Robb Elementary School during the shooting. He called the law enforcement response a disgrace.
It's like PTSD. You see him and you just want to go after him, you know? Anger, rage. They're just cowards. You need to resign.
I remember those shots being fired.
Nicole Ogburn taught 4th grade at Robb Elementary and told us the gunman fired into her classroom from the parking lot.
There wasn't just one person failing us. It was multiple people. Nobody's ever going to know how many of those could have been saved.
A recent report from the state's Rapid Response Training Center said it's possible that people could have been saved if they received medical attention sooner. As for the video, legislators will still share the findings of their report and the video privately with families on Sunday. Some families told me yesterday when I spoke with them that they still didn't know about that hearing, that was happening. Others told me they will not watch the video at all. They don't need to. Tony.
It's understandable, Lily. Thank you very much. Nothing's going to bring any of these kids back, these teachers back. But I hope that law enforcement watches that video and that training, that lessons are learned about how long one should hang back when, as we understand it, the screams of children were scrubbed from the video, which means the officers in the hallway were hearing that and yet sitting there.
You have to wonder under what world is it okay to use a hand sanitizer while children are screaming and you know that they're in there with a crazy gunman.
Shocked, betrayed, devastated.
Yeah, all of the above.
Making machines that...
I mean, seriously, that is absolutely horrifying. I mean, it's crazy. And I'm sitting here looking at these officers running. Their concern is for their own life. Like, are you serious? And then So they've scrubbed the screams from the video so that we can't hear the screams that the officers were hearing. But just looking at them, do any of them look like they were hearing kids screaming for their lives? Were any of them reacting as if they heard children literally dying? That's just.
The first day of summer is here, and so.
Hold on, I'm trying to mute the audio. I guess I'm not going to be able to do it from this, but no worries because I do have the video somewhere else pulled up. It's all good. We're going to go to YouTube and get it because I want to talk about a couple of things in this video. I mean, these cows, not once. They didn't just run once. They ran like 2 or 3 times, man. Every single time gunshots popped off, they took off. I'm gonna let this play.
Said that a 77-minute surveillance video is going to be shown in Uvalde and then released publicly this coming Sunday. No state law has prevented the release of that video. Our partners at KVUE TV in Austin have obtained a copy of that video now, and after thorough editorial discussion, we have decided to show portions of that video because this public record helps all of us to understand what exactly happened inside Robb Elementary School that day. It provides more context, but of course not all context. The video, we should say here, is difficult to watch, obviously, especially knowing what happened that day. You will see the influx of law enforcement officers into the school, which should have enabled quicker action. You will also hear some of the shots fired by the gunman. But we have taken very careful steps here not to show any especially graphic images. Though it hasn't been released to the victims' families yet, the transparency and the accountability that this video provides weighs heavily in favor of showing it to you now. Our Ariel Placencia is joining us now this afternoon to walk us through what this video shows and what it means for the investigation. Ariel?
Yeah, Jason, we believe this video will provide transparency and more insight into what happened that day. This evening, we are going to play 4 clips of video, and we want to be clear, the video has been edited, so you will not hear screaming from the classrooms. You will not see any injured children. You will, however, hear gunshots. Now, this first video is one of the toughest to watch. You're about to see an elementary school student, but this student is not physically harmed. This is the moment the shooter enters the school and walks down the hallway. Behind the shooter, a child will approach that same hallway, and then you will hear the shooter fire several shots in the opposite direction as the child turns and runs away. The time is 11:33 a.m.
You look at this piece of crap coming in this school. Thank God he didn't see this child. Thank God he didn't see
Now,
that
this next
child.
video begins roughly 3 minutes after what you just saw. You will not see the shooter. It's just as officers arrive with at least one rifle and try to confront the shooter. You will see them come into the frame at 11:36 a.m., but they will retreat back to the end of the hallway after hearing gunfire, and they will stay there for the next 45 minutes.
Look at this, a whole pack of cowards. He got to check his phone. Look. Coward's running. He about to break his ankles trying to get away. Running out of his clothes. He about to have a whole scary heart attack right
now, this
there.
video is a time lapse of a 45-minute clip from 11:37 a.m. to 12:22 p.m. real time. You will see officers gathered at the end of the hallway as more and more manpower as well as equipment arrives. Now, there is more footage of officers and equipment arriving and staging in that hallway.
Let me go back for a second.
But for the next video.
Now, when they do this time lapse, y'all pay attention up here at the top of the screen. I'm trying to figure out what's going on up there. I'm going to slow it down.
Now, this video is a time lapse of a 45-minute clip from 11:37 a.m. to 12:20.
Is that dude going from one classroom to another one?
Minute clip from 11:37 a.m. to 12.
Let me turn her off. Y'all see that? Somebody's moving around up there. That's got to be him. Who else would be walking back and forth across that hallway? I wish they'd show video from that part of the hallway.
There is more footage of officers and equipment arriving and staging in that hallway. But for the next video we're about to show you, the time is now 12:50 p.m. That's about an hour and 15 minutes after the first officers were seen on video in the hallway. Officers move into the classroom and take out the shooter. And in this video, you can see just how many officers there are in the hallway when the gunman is taken down. Again, Governor Greg Abbott and many in the Uvalde community have called for the release of this video. DPS's investigation, I should say, continues into what happened that day, Jason.
It is gut-wrenching to watch for sure, Ariel, but again, this is in.
I'm looking at how
gunfire, and they will stay there for the next 45 minutes.
Now just imagine you're hearing children screaming this entire time. Help me. Help me. Screaming for their lives. Do any of them look like they're hearing children dying? Not a single one of them are acting as if children's lives are on the line. He's checking his phone like, his phone. Would you look at them? They about to trip over each other trying to run away, you bunch of cowards.
Now, this video is a time lapse of a 45-minute clip from 11:37 a.m. to 12:22 p.m. real time. You will see officers gathered at the end of the hallway as more and more manpower as well as equipment arrives. Now, there is more footage of officers and equipment arriving and staging in that hallway. But for the next video we're about to show you, the time is now 12:50 p.m. That's about an hour and 15 minutes after the first officer.
Now, the way they bring this next piece in, now I didn't like that. They should have brought it in a few seconds sooner because you'll see this one guy backing up and he was backing up, and it was more of them that were backing up because gunshots had just went off. And again, these cowards ran again.
Officers were seen on video in the hallway. Officers move into the classroom and take out the shooter. And in this video, you can see just how many officers there are in the hallway when the gunman is taken down. Again, Governor Greg Abbott and many in the Uvalde community have called for the release of this video. DPS's investigation, I should say, continues into what happened that day, Jason.
It's gut-wrenching to watch for sure, Ariel, but again, this is intended to bring about that transparency that we've been talking about. There is obviously a lot to take.
They need to fire every single one of those officers. Okay, it's been about an hour. I'm going to get off of here, but I am going to come back because I have nothing to do for the rest of the week but just stream. And when I come back, we are going to talk about Uvalde because this little piece has gotten is under my skin. I ain't lying, it's under my skin. It's been under my skin since the very first day that this happened. The whole response to what happened in that school shooting in Uvalde is deplorable. Every officer there needs to be stripped of their guns, their badges, any accolades they've earned over their career, any financial gain that they've made, any type of awards or bonuses should be paid back. They suck. I can't even say it. Every single one of those everybody that was in that hallway running, bunch of cowards.